Hi all, and welcome to another evening with Thomas. This has been arranged a bit at short notice due to both schedules, and this is an evening with Thomas, and tonight's host you will all be familiar with, from Universal Voice to Cosmic Voice to THI, and also in the past as a partner of mine. His story mimics many others who have been on this series, but I suspect will go into certain subjects much deeper due to our own experiences of life and also a differing reality, which, unlike most others, started for her at an early age, very early age. Now, THI is a platform that allows people to speak freely without judgment, and I ask all to listen to it based on the narrative contained and not discolour it due to previous issues. Time, like everything else, moves on, and it's up to us all to do the same. I did think long and hard about this show, as it does affect me personally, but our roles here are to save and help people, as many people as possible, regardless of who or what they are. The only provision is they are working to improve themselves first before others. Now, that I do know she's been doing diligently since she contacted me for help back in January of this year, and it was easier for me to say no than yes due to the past, but that would have been hypocritical of me of what I state and say on the shows. There's a saying, often repeated, revenge, as the saying goes, is sweet, but it's not. It is laced with a toxic frequency that pushes you deeper into the pit, another toilet bowl exercise where you both end up getting flushed. So I took up the challenge, and she is a challenge largely of her own making at times, which I'm sure we will find out in the show, of which I believe she will relay in tonight's show, and hoping also people see it as an example of inaction, of letting go. Tonight's show host will be Chloe Kirker, and this is her first song. Hi all, and welcome to an evening with Thomas. Like I said in the introduction at the beginning, you'll be familiar with this person, and it's important that we go on the information and ignore past issues. We need to move past that and step forward into a new future for us all. You know, some cases it's kind of painful to go over past issues, but it also brings us into the future once that past is addressed, and that's the key aspect of today's show. And so tonight I'm pleased to introduce someone who'll be familiar to us all, and that is Chloe Kirker. Hi.
Hello, Thomas. Thanks so much for having me on. The first thing I want to express to the listeners is that I have made amends with Tommy, which feels really good. I just wanted to let listeners know this. I chose that first song, Chris Goldier by Helund, because it's about making peace and speaking truths to do so, to make that peace. I've been interacting with some of you for over 5 years. This path together, although remote on the internet, also warrants my respect and honoring. I put up a lot of my energy into the articulation and expression of my truths and advice on how to protect ourselves while we heal out on the internet. It's my personality to make sure that when I stray from my own path, to show myself corrections, to be accountable. That's one reason why I've come on Tommy's show, to show this action to the listeners that care. Our actions are the results of our thoughts and emotions. You would not be hearing me right now in this show if I had not done some heavy, deep work to clarify my thoughts and feelings. I know I've been intense in some of my interactions. What few know is that many of those interactions were that way from what I alone was dealing with in Tommy and I's household at that time. Skype calls and groups that were playing head games with us and attacking us. The attacks and attempts to control Tommy were the most challenging for me. I am a dog at heart, very protective of those I care about. This put me on the defense to keep the onslaught from him. The emails and private messages he and I had to deal with as admins of CV and THI, the game players, one of which I just heard has Lacey Eckhart has finally been seen for what they are. When I knew it 4 years ago, that's just one example. Decker's another one. Dean Chambers. Sorry, but big jerks to Tommy, right?
Yes.
Dean even asked you for help one night, right?
That was correct. That was a painful episode.
Right. You removed a gross-looking orc. I think it was the first time he'd seen these things that was on him. And the orc hurt your arm really badly in the Astral.
Yeah.
And your arm was hurt for like months, right?
Yeah, it was pretty much 9 months. That entity kept pushing his wife over, so he asked me to help. But it's a common theme, as you all know too well. The people that you help are the ones who tend to turn against you at a later time. You know, they forget all the help you've given, and it's one of the things that I've had to try and work through as to why that should be the case, but it's the way it is.
Yeah. It's what happens when you give a shit. The world throws it back at you.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I didn't know that. He was pushing his wife over, so the entity on him was attacking his wife on
Yes.
Dean. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those games that people play really got to me. How many times I'd seen people turn on you. And I got a little too defensive and reactive, and I know it. They were even trying to, demand to be put into the inner circle groups and quotes and whatnot. But with the imbalanced way they were behaving, it was so far removed from the real war on us that is going on still. It made me sick to see them causing so much unnecessary BS for you. And it was going about it in all the wrong way. I mean, they may have genuinely wanted to help, but it was just really causing a lot of superfluous BS. Some of the things they said were really funny. It was pretty ridiculous. I was your handler.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Just so in case you all haven't figured it out, he's pretty wily. Anyways, I hope this gives you an idea of what I was dealing with. That was part of what led me to fall to not reacting balanced in terms of my interactions sometimes. I unfortunately met them where they were, some of them that were playing these games to waste Tommy's time and energy. And there is more that I will speak of over the course of this podcast that will speak to the other traps I fell into. It's important to me that those who genuinely care about Tommy know this, and that maybe perhaps something I say might help other people recognize traps that are around them. I'm talking about self-created traps. Anyways, something I want to bring up about Cassandra right off the bat.
That Cassandra.
Yeah.
We kind of covered, I don't know whether you still listen to the show, but we kind of covered, I thought it was pertinent to mention that letter again recently, because it fitted in with the narrative that I was composing on trying to get people to understand. You know, there was elements in that Cassandra letter, as harsh as it was. Sometimes the truth is harsh, and there was elements in there.
Well, she spoke the truth. Yeah.
You
but
can't necessarily disagree with. There's other elements that obviously we do, given the circumstances. But I'm sure you'll be able to cover some of that in this show.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if people know there's an actual myth that refers to Cassandra. And you're into history and spiritual stuff now because of the things that I'm going to talk about, like shared experiences. But I always followed the myths. That was where was my original area of focus for finding answers to what was going on with me. So I do know for a fact that my past lifetimes, and in this lifetime, has been tainted with what Cassandra's curse, the myth of her as a seeress of Apollo's Delphi oracle. She was cursed not to be believed or heard. Now, it's ironic that a parent brings this up, and it's not a coincidence that Cassandra was the name of one of the Draco parents assigned to humanity to control and lead the dark magic covens here. She even said this in her goodbye letter, right? She wrote to Shane Bales to put out publicly, humans never hear people who speak the truth. Her name, being the one cursed, is yet another example of the inverting of truth speakers. We are crazy, right? And it was she, Cassandra, who was part of this curse being created and implemented in our society to try to shut us up. And that's why I chose the first song. It's the ability to use truth as a weapon. You can get translations of the Proto-Norse language, but she speaks, the woman singer speaks of her sword, of her tongue becoming her sword, her weapon, right? To bring peace among the many races, species in physical form, right? So
pretty much,
yeah.
It's yes, she was behind that curse. Of course, I don't know, but you will remember.
Yes, I will.
Of what it led to when I wrote a piece that was actually used in the divorce court against me. When I said exactly that. We are considered crazy if, and I listed I don't know how many things, all kinds of conspiracy and we're crazy if you're spiritual, if you don't follow religion, and people think I'm nuts if this, and it was used.
It was a list of truths.
Yeah. That
if we speak of it in public, people look at us sideways. That was so frustrating watching you go through that. I remember that time in your life. It was right when we first met, basically, before we'd actually even physically met. Your whole family turned against you. Yeah. I mean, the results, you got taken away by the police right in front of me. Yes, that was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For telling the truth. That was it. That's the way this works. I did a piece last night because Randy did something recently about the pressures of being in the front line as a radio show host. Of course, you will have seen that, being close to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not a normal household. I have no idea how you coped through that. You stayed so calm. I think you snuck a cell phone in there somehow, and
yep.
I remember texting you. Yeah, I would not have taken it as calmly as you do. In fact, I was completely freaking out. Yeah. Anyways, experiencing this curse of not being believed put a deeply seated sense of urgency in me. Lifetime after lifetime of it. It was like a repeating situation that just put this drive in me. But it was always shut down, and it shut me down psychically and vocally. And then as I had more experiences that I'm going to share, some of, that most would consider crazy, unbelievable, it became the fuel behind my intense need to warn others of what I was experiencing, because I knew it was not just happening to me. I was seeing family members and others with things on them. And many of these experiences did make me feel as if I were going crazy, especially when the sort of telepathic attacks started to happen. If a person who hears this is of the Cassandra program inclination, they could say I'm crazy among other things. But those people are not why I'm on here talking with you today.
This is, again, a common theme, and what we've tried to engineer, which you were the start of, within THI, is telling people that they're not crazy. There's no such thing as normal. And no matter how bizarre other people think life experiences are, they can't compare with your own. You know, only you know the truth of what you experience. You know, it's like people seeing UFOs. Someone tells you, you either believe them or you don't. But that is a truth to you. Just because somebody else hasn't seen it does not mean it's not the truth. And this is part of the psychology mind game that they've played with us, where you know, in essence, the internet destroyed that myth, because people were miles away and there's no way of communicating. And now the internet, you know, you can communicate with anyone around the world, and suddenly people started finding out, hang on a minute, I'm not as crazy as they're making me out to be. In fact, the crazy ones are the ones who are calling me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see it when that vein pops out in their head when they hear you. Yeah, well, it's so important to share our experiences, because as much as each of our experiences are going to be different, we can speak up to the edges of each other's and help us slowly make sense of what's happening to us. And it's something that I've figured out in this year. I figured out something quite large about what has been happening with me, and I need to tell some of my experiences for you to get an idea of more of what that is before I say it. Because it's even the word for what I've been going through has inversions on it, negative inversions, and that's not the case. So I want to speak to those of us who are on the path to healing themselves, or would like to be. Listening to your shows, Tommy, does mean that people want to be awake to the lies they've been told. The epic history and spiritual truths you speak of, and how to stay centered and balanced at this time. You know, the encouragement you give interspersed with the really dark facts of it is important. You know, it just is. You know, I know my path here is a bit different. The experiences I've had are directly related to us waking up in the astral and getting free of its binds, because we have been bound in spirit, in non-form. Our souls have been bound. So my research, as I said, has been in the areas of myths and the occult. That's where I was at. I mean, when we first started talking, you would just roll your eyes at all the names and the stories I was telling you. But that's what I brought to the table, so to speak. So this urgency from not being believed or heard, the urgency of my need to get others to learn from my mistakes is still in me, as I know exactly how hard it is to go through difficult events, difficult deaths, abuses, and the self-harming behaviors, tendencies that are born from having a rough start in life, which I also had, and I know Tommy did too. This urgency is tempered now, though, as this past 2 years of lessons has finally come home. We cannot make anyone else wake up. to the lies they tell themselves until they are ready to hear it. As I only know this now, as I woke up to yet another lie I was telling myself to avoid facing what I needed to this year, because it was time. So I do want to say, I have apologized to Thomas, and we've spoken a bit privately, but I want to say sincerely to any who were hurt by my shadow hunting in the past, I respect wherever you are at. Regardless of this urgency, I know I do not need to try so hard to be heard. More than ever from the paths I've been on in this last 2 years, I know that we only see and hear each other's wisdom when we are ready, no matter how crucial it is that we heal and move past where each of us is stuck. I know I'm not alone in the mistakes I've made. The best I can hope for is to maybe give some deeper understanding to the others who may be going through this inner quickening to their whole self-integration, perhaps leading to the avoidance of some of the outer damaging actions while they are healing that I did. Because we all need to heal, each and every one of us. We need each other more than ever now. Yeah, and we do. And not to burn bridges between us that we may need.
Yeah, it's been a key aspect of the last few shows. Like I said, the last couple of months, the shows have been fairly heavy. They've been laced with triggers. Some find it difficult, and some a lot liked it, but some didn't understand it also. And it's all about the levels of healing and also frequency that people are at, and the show tries to accommodate the all. Sometimes a lot of the times it does that, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's a case you can't please all of the people all of the time, as we found out with several people complaining about I laugh too much or something else. It's an inner problem, and all I'm trying to do, and I presume with what you're trying to get across today, is it's up to us all, not only to fix ourselves. We have to fix ourselves. You can't go teaching or helping others if you're struggling within yourself. And I think from
well, I did. Yeah. There's that's part of my makeup. Not a lot, but some people heal themselves as they are helping others, and I have a capability to, like your overview mind, I can even hear and feel people's frequencies through their written text. I'm that sensitive. I'm very much an empath.
Yeah.
And because of what I've been through, that you will understand more after I tell some of these experiences, I have an ability to see the overview of what's going on for them and help people see the positive in it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't acting outside of my wheelhouse. It's just that the healing is an ongoing thing so long as you're in a body here.
Yeah.
It's like the layers of the onion, right? Like I was getting to my core stuff, but I don't want to get into that yet. So I know I can be intense. I don't know if you're not into astrology very much, but that's got a lot of myths in it. There are archetypes described in those myths that each one of us has been at one time or another as we go through this full spectrum of experiences that leads to our mastery of everything, basically. So my rising sign in Western astrology is Scorpio. I think it's my moon sign in Vedic. But that means I'm deep. I don't do things surface. And a lot of the masses that are asleep, they do surface. I don't do surface. This means that people who have agendas don't like me, even though I've done nothing wrong. So my ability to handle intense situations is just in me. And that's, why I've had, I think, a lot of these experiences, because my whole self-spirit knew this, and that's why I had these experiences. But, there's when I get through these things, you'll see why it overwhelmed me. I mean, even though I can handle these intense situations, it was the perfect storm coming into your household. From 2013 to especially 2016 and 2018, it was just culminating. The weekly shows, the nightly lengthy calls on every other night, sometimes with wonderful people, and again with utter idiots. Listening to Neil Keenan for hours blather on to you, telling you stuff you told him the call before. Yeah. Oh my God. The shite we went through with people playing games from VUV to CV and even into THI. But what most people have no idea about was the quickening that was happening for both you and I in those years. The increasing visions, the paranormal sightings, and psychic to astral attacks that were happening, attacks directed at me from being at your side, like that orc attacking Dean's wife. If they cannot get to you, they'll come to those around you.
Yeah, that's a common theme. Certain, for whatever reason, certain ones they can't attack directly. They can try, but it always fails. Mm-hmm. And this will be recognisable to some who listen to this. So what they do is they look for the weak link, and technically Chloe was the weak link, not weaker, just a weaker link,
Yep.
And so the attacks in Cosmic Voice were designed to get at Chloe.
Was it just Cosmic Voice? It was in the Skype groups and things like that, and it was because I was still raw emotionally, because I was just coming out of stuff I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, it's it's a common theme. They did it to my ex-wife also, because I was with her for 32 years, and her behaviour was completely off the charts of anything comparable that had gone on in the previous 30 odd years. Mm-hmm. And people don't often see or recognise that the minute you light up in a certain way, and there's many in our group that have lit up, and there's some differing intensities of light that they want to target, and if they can't target, they will target the ones around them. And this is what happens with the group. People have noticed it recently. Trolls coming in every other day trying to disrupt the flow of the group, and that's what goes on.
Oh yeah, no, because that invisible interconnection between us, I've seen that, I don't know what to call it, it's a natural, organic sort of light grid over the earth. It's not a grid, it's sort of, it's natural. It feels good, but I see lights light up on it, and those lights, as they get brighter, light up those around them. So what they're doing by attacking certain people is they're trying to get the auric fields, the so-called invisible thing that isn't. I mean, it's tangibly sensible. I mean, you can walk into a room and sense people's energies if you're sensitive to that, and that's why they do it. It's an attempt to stop the life force containing souls here from lighting up and it spreading, because it will spread.
Yep.
So the other part of what was getting to me was all the research we were doing to uncover what we were led to figure out from our intuitions. It was a lot of digging that got things figured out step by step. But you would not get stuck, Tommy. I did, though. stuck on details in my research to uncover what's gone wrong here. Because what you're led to research usually comes from like something deep within you going, I need to figure this out. And what I had to figure out basically was some really heavy, deep shit. Sorry, I keep swearing. It spiraled me, that's what you said, that's what you called it, into dark places, and it was depressing. The whole AI simulation nightmare that began in 2014 and came to a peak in 2016, ugh. I think it was a necessary evil, though, because I had, along with that light, the organic life force soul grid I'd seen over the planet, I sensed also an overlay over top of this natural life force, ley lines connecting between us. And this overlay wasn't natural. It made me feel sick whenever I saw it and felt it. And I needed to figure out what it was. So that's that spiral into AI-ness and in its relation to how our thoughts and feelings gave it energy. Basically, it was a copy on all the dark magicians' work to harvest our energy, but a different form of energy because they're bloody machines. But in hindsight, it derailed me. It did, by my being focused on it for too long and not focused on my own healing, which was a big part of why I did not hear you warn me of it not being real. Right? It's not real, but if we think it is, we make it real.
Yeah.
So even still, we both see where technology here now is still trying to get us to make it real. And that's another reason why I wanted to come on and share my story, to help people see that where we let our research to search for answers to what's happened here, what's gone wrong, to not let the research we're doing suck us too far off our center. Because being on our center, being balanced in our hearts, if we're too off center, we lose our sense of purpose. Our mission we gave ourselves before we came into this physical creation is kind of left by the wayside. And
that's the word you used, research, is something that I've covered in the shows. All the information is contained within you, all of it.
Yep.
People like our show because they get the I've got to say it, they get the top intel on the planet, bar none, of what's going on. But essentially, we all have our own knowledge, and that's why it's called researching. All you're trying to do is trigger what's already in you. And, you spoke about the fields. It depends on what frequency you are and what soul level development you are. Then certain fields of information becomes wider to you.
Yeah.
And people listen to like the most listened to shows we have on the website. When they first listen to it, some of it is a bit too far off, and then 3, 6, 12 months later they listen to it again, and suddenly it all makes more sense.
Yeah, no, I'm going to talk about that. There is a succession of thought forms and states of mind that we definitely need to go through to be ready to hear or understand things. The researching helps us remember our mission. Remember, re-put together our mission. And our mission is definitely, we made agreements with ourselves with our whole selves before we came into this incarnation, came into our first incarnation. It could have been 1 million years ago, 2 million years ago, or 500 years ago. We made a deal with ourselves about what we intended to accomplish here. And we specifically were called to come here because of certain gifts we had mastered, because there's been several call-outs for help here. But to refine this destiny of our mission, that's another twisted in meaning word, destiny. It's been made out to be preordained by the religare, the mind-bind of religious dogma. It's not. Destiny is not in anyone else's hands, Neo. Destiny is in our own thoughts and feelings and actions, action and consequence. Destiny is what our own whole self spirit decided to do, it needed to do here. It's in our path. Our ancestors and our own soul has walked on, off and on for aeons. You know, we keep trying to return to it. They keep driving us off, or we allow them to drive us off. You know, they, the controllers, want us to think our destiny is out of our hands. Because if we really know ourselves, have begun to remaster our full spectrum of frequencies, miracles happen, magic happens. Because then we control what we create, what we manifest, without being derailed.
Yeah, and then you got wording and language, which gets distorted as it goes down the line, as we often know. You know, on one particular show, which was more directed at Madeline than yourself, but there was elements within it of that you were working as an agent, which was mistook from somebody else. So, you know, I want to clear that up as well. But, you know, I knew you were struggling, and I knew 6 weeks before you left on the first time, and 3 months the second time.
Yep.
You know, and you know, it's kind of difficult when even ignoring the love connection and being a partner, seeing another soul suffering when you're an empath affects you also. And you know, there's nothing worse than watching somebody struggle in their own pain.
Yep.
Which is why, you know, I know it's I've mentioned this in a few shows due to a certain member struggling with patience. It's why I probably have bundles of it, which can be frustrating. I do know that.
Yeah.
But I always knew that, and it was kind of very difficult to me, because I wanted to help.
Well, you tried.
I
just wasn't ready.
You know, we all grow it. One of the things I've struggled with in the past is I have a perfection element to it on things that I do. You know, and I expect people. I was like this when I was a snooker captain. I put 100% in. Same as THI and CV, I put 100% in, and I kind of expect everyone else to put the same in, but not everyone else is the same.
Yep.
And you know, and it's all about trying to help each other develop and grow, whilst recognizing they may not be at your level or your stage of development or your stage of inner healing or your stage of shadow work. You know, and we have to learn and maintain the 45-55 balance. You know, it's a key aspect. That 45-55 isn't just about highs and lows of excitement or depression. It covers everything on so many different levels. You know?
Yeah.
And that's swinging doesn't help anybody.
Well, no, it's not the swing so much as it's getting stuck. And what I touched on with what I was going through with the truther community household, because basically that's, you put 100% into it, like you said, and that combined with the multi-dimensional experiences we were having and my own deprocessing of experiences that I alone was having, you know, I got imbalanced and I got stuck in part of that pendulum swing, the dark And like I said, it was a necessary evil, even the AI. Do you remember the shared vision we had of the pendulum back in 2013? I don't even think we were actually physically together yet. It began,
yes,
with our hearts beating so hard that it felt like they were booming out of our chests. Your heart was doing that too, right?
Yeah.
Then 2 beams of light, white light, come down through the tops of our heads. And everything was white light inside of me. The soles of my feet and hands were on fire, tingling madly with this energy. I remember the tolerance of the frequencies was absolutely challenging. My heart felt tight for the space it had in my chest. Energy. You saw the energy centers. They were all clear, right?
Yeah. No colors.
No colors. It was really intense. The light changed to the external. We're still vibrating with this massive amount of energies. And the light became a column, a great swinging pendulum. It stayed white at first, and then it had a band of blue in the middle of it, and then fiery oranges, yeah. And then, we would have these shared experiences, but each of us would kind of pick up on different details, and that has to do with what symbols are in our genetics, or in our frequencies that are given to us because they speak to us on a deeper level. So I then saw a white bird fly up between us, followed by a black bird. I then saw a very strange thing, and I remembered, I looked it up afterwards because I thought it was a myth that I had read, but it was one that I had just heard about. I didn't read it fully until after this, but I saw a great turtle. I mean a huge turtle in the middle of the American continent rise up from the earth. And I remember very clearly how humbled and in a state of awe that this vision gave me. And then the whole scene changes, and this is something that you and I both saw. Was we were on a beach, and all these children were running towards us, really happy to see us. I don't think we had no idea what this vision meant for a long time, beyond that it was about energetic balance. The experience of this potent, this strong frequencies, the sheer strength of them that ran through our bodies, it was beyond intense. And the energy centers, or chakras, were not at all as they had been presented here.
Yep, pretty much. It was. I kind of mentioned this briefly about what took place in 2013. Amidst all the chaos that was going on, I was losing people and friends and whatnot. Suddenly I was learning and seeing things that I didn't think most people were capable of seeing, and these new abilities, and all of a sudden, it just like it was a completely different me altogether. And it's kind of a lot to get your head around. And then you've been experiencing some of these things from a much earlier age, but that particular vision is how I came to warn people off, not away from yoga, but they have to shield before they go into that exercise. One person got kind of pissy with me over it. Well, that's fine. Nobody's expert on anything on this planet. That's the problem. We're all relearning. And yoga is opening up the energy centers, the chakras. And if you are not shielded or not aware of contracting, then you're inviting all kinds in. So all the benefits that you're getting out of yoga will be crushed if one entity gets in, because once it's in, most people can't understand that are being hosted by another being, because that's not normal, that's not possible. That's how they get away with it.
You have to. It's incomplete. The teachings that we have left here are incomplete, and that's done on purpose. Yeah. You know, the three treasuries, breath work. You work with the solar plexus because that's your will that protects your heart. You breathe into the heart next, and then you breathe into the third eye. There's 3 key energy centers that absolutely have to be fully powered up, as well as you starting the practice with a shield. Yeah. You know, that's all that I've figured out so far. I mean, it's even the oldest yoga expert in India may know more of the answers, but they've just done such a damn good job of messing up our teachings here. But again, it's inside of us, and that's how we've been figuring a little bit of this out at a time. You know, having this experience is what began to solidify my growing understanding of the full spectrum of frequencies. You know, a vibration, sound, it's a color, it's light, it's dark, that is unique to each of us, you know, unique to each of us in terms of, you know, our spirit or our soul as a human, which is unique to humans. Our souls are unique, which is a way that our spirit is seeded into us in a manner that's different to most other species out there. It's what our frequencies are made up of, everything that we've ever experienced, everywhere. Even outside of this universe, there's a trace of it in the vessel that we're in now that vibrates at the frequency that is synced up to the spirit and the soul that we are in this body. You know, the white bird and the black bird of that vision are symbolic of the polarities being released. And I saw that alone. That was something for me, because that's what I'm working on. That's my core forte that I'm trying to do here. You know, and then the heart center, I mean, our hearts went up a bloody size in that. Yeah, that was intense. I thought I was having a heart attack. You know, like, and I remember, like, my heart feels tight in my chest. You know, it got larger and stronger after the symbols of the blackbird and the whitebird flew up, because that's the truth of it. The more we get unstuck, the more we're able to stay comfortably in our heart. Yeah. You know, and that was the real. Yeah.
The yin and yang. In essence, is polarity, and there's also duality as it's presented.
Yes.
But there's a white half and a black half, except there's something else connected to that. That people don't see or don't recognize. The
dot of each other in each one. You know, they're part of the same thing.
No, what I'm talking about is the outer circle.
Ah, right, exactly. Okay, I got you.
That's the triality. Mm-hmm. You see, they want you dancing inside the circle of the polarity, black and white, light and dark.
Yeah, spinning wheel.
but people don't notice the circle that goes round both, which then combines the two and creates the Trinity, which I spoke about recently in the show, which then sets the stage, and Ceticus has kind of touched on this as well, of the where you've got the two eyes, suddenly there's another one above you. Well, that's the yin and yang, or more to do with the brain polarity, left hemisphere and right. It used to be one. It wasn't two. It wasn't male and female. They were combined. And so when you combine the left and right polarity of the brain, which you can only do by controlling the emotions and the mental aspect of it, is then the eye above, or the middle, it becomes fused. And what happens then is, when you do more work, having sorted the mind out, you then are able to go down into the heart, which is then when people start to think from the heart, not think from the mind. And that's called alignment. You know, if you look at the Catholic symbol, it's in there where they go, but they do it from the chest, one side, the other side, up to the middle of the head and down. They're inverting it. What it has to do is go from one side of the brain, the other side of the brain, to the middle, which is slightly up, and then down, which is the sword. Right. The right way up.
Yep. The inverted cross, right? That some people got.
They do the inverted cross. It's upside down.
Yeah.
It's up to us to reverse it and create the sword within ourselves.
Yeah, that's an unbinding.
Yeah.
The cross that's slammed into the earth is a binding, and the one that's uprighted is reclaimed, right? So it's about mastering your mind, your brain, and your heart, and staying balanced, right?
And overcoming the duality that's presented to us. Like the yin and yang, people don't see the circle around it.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the third core, you see.
Yeah, and the circle, in a way, was seen by me by the circle of the Turtle Island I saw, and the children, the humanity. You know, it's humanity getting free. You know, like that's the big picture, right?
So you mentioned earlier about spectrum of frequencies. Clearly, initially, when that vision appeared, they were all clear. There was no colours. Maybe you could explain some of that.
Well, when we have these experiences, I mean, obviously we hold them lightly at first, and certainly while we're having them, because we don't want to, you know, impose assumptions or thought forms onto them. We want to just let them play out. This was a waking time vision that we shared. I can't even remember what started it. But yeah, it has to do with the energy centers, in that because you saw them, I didn't see that part.
I did.
Yeah.
Which is then suggestive, because those colours had all been emptied out, and this is the problem
they
going
weren't
with the Kundalini, which is another practice, is not too clever either. You know, and the key is to have all the colours lined up, and each represents, different energy centres or chakras. You know.
Well, we've been co-opted through this mashed up, partial system of the energy centers. We've been co-opted in each one of them. Each one of them has a life theme, or an area of life, as I call it, that it's about. And when we focus on different areas in our body, when we're doing our inner work, we can get senses of the ways in which we've been wounded, or hold things in those energy centers. And I think that's why they've ascribed these colors and these sigils to them, is because it's about following. That's why they made it incomplete. They overwrote it so that we would not have the tool as it was originally intended to use to unhook where our wounds have been hooked into through these energy centers. I mean, the energy centers generate energy, and they work on from the root up. They build up, and they become a flowing circuit, like a meridian. And they, through all this energy harvesting, life force energy harvesting they do. Of course, they're going to use our energy centers, but so it is related to the full spectrum of our frequencies. But this vision, so it was two-part. When you told me that, I started my research into the energy centers, and I even refused to call them chakras. But the other part of this vision also was more important to me, was understanding this frequencies of this pendulum swing. All the frequencies are connected. All the experiences we've ever had, good or bad, had a learning in them for us, right? And the frequencies of our whole self spirit, I feel, committed certain specific frequencies to each of us being here now, and they're in our soul. They are a myriad of energies that are sounds, tones that vibrate and create our reality. I mean, this table I'm sitting at, it feels physical, but it is, if I was of the mindset where I can believe that this isn't solid, I can put my hand right through it. It's vibrating molecules. It's constantly in movement. Everything vibrates. This full spectrum of this pendulum swing was shown to us in this way. I mean, we felt it, Tommy. It was really strong to remind us of the incredible capability to dynamically create realities that humans have, and to express ways to reteach this capability in my own way. The more of us that express our intuitions, our wisdoms, the more possibilities there's a way that it's going to get spoken of in a way that somebody is going to understand. So it's really important that people come out and talk, because everyone gets a different part of it. It's just like you and I seeing slightly different things in that. We spoke about it afterwards, and it began our understanding unfolding about a whole bunch of things. I don't think this full spectrum of frequencies is activated in humanity because of those energy center co-opting and a lot of other things. Most do not have access to more than a comfortable or uncomfortable swath of it. That's just sort of like the known and accepted part. As I said before, how we create our reality is how we think and feel. This creates a focused intent that forms our perceptions, and these perceptions are the filters by which we perceive life, filters by which we either limit our frequencies or open up to the possibilities and enter more of our full spectrum of frequencies. I mean, that's why you and I were naturals for going into these altered vision states. It's because we keep an open mind, right?
Yeah, this is kind of what I've been teaching the members, is the doors that open, and you either step through that door and open up to more possibilities,
or you don't even see the door,
or probabilities. Or you stand in the vortex of the corridor of bullshittery, quite frankly, spinning in your own loop and your own repeated patterns. This is what changes. This is why I say, be the change, because you go, those doors open, and you go through them. You're going into a new reality. You're going into a new timeline. You're going into a new thinking process. You're going into a totally different frequency and understanding. and this is kind of where everyone can make the change, regardless of mass arrests or trust funds coming out or any of that. They're all external. This is internal change. Yes,
that changes things outwardly. And that's kind of what happened to me, why I lost it over the 2016, 2018. I was focused on the blackbird. To tell you the truth, during the vision, that blackbird kind of freaked me out, seeing it. But I now understand why I was focused on it, because I had some work to do. And all the work I had already done on myself had taken me to this closer, bigger core wound. So as hard as it was, I had to be focused on the blackbird to get my personal frequencies pendulum to swing free a bit more. And I was stubborn.
Oops.
Yeah, well, that stubbornness is why I'm still here. Anyways, these false controllers, as I call them, I know they've been able to control us only because of our not knowing, remembering that we can create any reality we want. And they've used our ignorance of ourselves to occult our true potential, and we've allowed it. And they've used our frequencies for their own use.
Yeah.
The trauma, pain, and grief I had to face, we all have to face and release in ourselves. That's us holding on to it. Keeps us from activating more of ourselves. If we free ourselves of the trauma's distortions, making that doorway invisible inside of us, keeping us in the corridor of bullshittery, as you say. But we just have to remake the choice, like I did. If we keep at it, this process of accountability, seeing where we need to look into the dark of ourselves, step by step, we reclaim our whole self spirits and our full spectrum of frequencies. We remaster ourselves. It becomes more available to us. We become stronger, more resilient, and more wise in our actions. Yeah. You knew this was coming, because I was not very resilient to the bullshit that was going on.
That's, the overview, man.
Yeah. Well, no, it's anyone outside of us can see what's going on, especially if they kind of know us a bit. I mean,
yeah.
We lived together for 5 years, right? And you've seen the inside of me. Not physically.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah. So every soul here has been through cataclysmic trauma. Personal trauma, too. Even if you say no, you have. It's deep down in our unconscious memory. It's right in our body's very cells. It's part of the syncing up of the synchronizing of the frequency of the vessel to the spirit soul that is inhabiting it, Our subconscious is something very different from our unconscious. I almost think that the subconscious was created to be a firewall that we don't even get to this unconscious. It's the bigger part of us that, frankly, it fights us. It makes us have to fight to get past the blocks and negotiate a peace within us to refine balance, and then we have more access to it. This is that inner war that's spoken of so much, that I just came out of another round of, and I know it's not over yet. Like I said, it's never going to end as long as I'm here in this body, and I know it's like that for all of us, even if we do not realize the need we have to heal, to regain balance within and without, to reclaim our fullest spectrum of creational frequencies. And this is related to the above and below, so that war can end. All of the people listening to this want the war on our consciousness to end, right? Or on our life force energies to end.
Pretty much.
Yeah. want a world free of ones who they think they can own us, tell us how to learn, tell us how to be.
Yeah. This is, healing and more healing. And people have to really get a grasp of that and face it, because as you heal, you not only heal on this level, you heal on the other planes, which is something that people kind of struggle with, and I get that. But it's if we fix this planet, we fix a whole heap more planets along the way. Again, that's the multi-dimensional aspect of this particular vessel, which is unique, and why so many of the other beings and clowns on the planet, minions doing their bidding, have striven to control us. Some of it is envy. I've said in a previous show, you could argue that perhaps it wasn't the best idea to create one being that was so far advanced of all the others. It does lead to envy. It was a nice experiment. Unfortunately, in life things get abused, and it's because people are out of balance, out of frequency, and we have to learn to become leaders and masters of our own frequency first before we start spreading out to others, to be able to act balanced outwardly.
If we don't own our own stuff, we're not confident leaders. We're not leaders.
No. And if you want to lead over others, you're not a leader either.
Yeah, any inkling of competition, is an indicator you're not ready.
The comparative mindset which plagues many. We've covered that many times in the show. There's lots of people who just say, I want to be the leader, and that's out of ego. No, telling people that you want to be the leader is ego. Pure and simple. You be a leader. There's a difference. Most leaders, you'll know how many people asked me to go and do my own show whilst I was with Drake, and how many times I refused, because I'm quite happy to lead from behind, and in essence, better than anyone. I'm
smiling right now. I know exactly how this works. Well, that's where a real leader is standing. So when shit hits the fan, people just look to you, right? They look to you. And you didn't say nothing. You've just got the most grounded presence in the room that's seeing the whole situation. So when they look to you, you're like, okay, well then this, and this needs to happen, regardless of whatever the plan was to begin with. That's what a leader does. They assess. They're grounded. They're not coming forth with, I'm not even going to say the image that came to mind. So,
well,
we'll talk more on that. I have a lot more to say on that.
Maybe you went ahead in Cosmic Voice, and maybe you can speak a bit of it now about psychic protection and ground and center and shielding documents, and also healing. What caused you to do that?
Okay. Well, these are the Cassandra moment, crazy, intense experiences, and they began for me. Just to let you know off the start, I really don't dream anymore. I do things at night. I remember certain concepts when I wake up. But if I have a dream, it's usually an attack, or it's a nighttime remembrance of what I was up to. right? But as a kid, I dreamed my ass off. And I remembered almost all of them, thank goodness, because I lost all my dream journals. As soon as I started to write, I started to write them down and draw them. But at the time when these started to happen, I mean, it was 5, 6 years old, there was no language in me other than my artistic ways to express and process them. So I drew a lot. You know, my family members often reported of me that when I was young, I'd be under the coffee table with like scissors and my pencils and like drawing these whole things and cutting them out and creating these whole little worlds of my own making. And I was. A bit of that, a big part of it was my outer world of my first family this lifetime was not very comfortable. And I know in many ways that I chose to shut down psychically when I was awake to protect myself. And I retreated into these worlds that I created because of this. And it took me decades. I was painfully shy to come back out and begin to speak, express myself. I started doing this back, like you mentioned, when I was in CV. I began to do long posts and articles telling of how I learned from these heavy experiences that were often born from childhood visions and what was going on in waking reality. And I wrote these posts in the hopes of others I knew were out there that had gone through similar experiences. Again, this is that, I know it's kind of hypocritical, but I genuinely, I heal as I help others. And that is the Scorpio trait. If you look into that, it's very much how it's part of our destiny. And it makes me happy when I started to see others write up their own experiences and posts, you know, this dam of not being able to share and have others help us process traumatic, you know, what the heck experiences was long past due being broken.
Yeah. Wells the Fargo experiences.
Yeah.
Term it.
Yeah.
What the, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so these things can shape us or break us, yeah, even with the banking realm. It's important, though, that these spiritual experiences are shared to help give the perspective that may open us up to understanding more about who and what we really are in a world that would have us just sleep because we're too afraid we're going to be crazy. I be called crazy. So these experiences are what led me to become such an intense researcher for the truth. Focused on protection from psychic attacks and healing on all levels. So I guess these ones, this is a really kind of, it says both sides, negative and positive. I would have this experience every night before I was asleep, of this sensation of spinning. And if I spun counterclockwise, like it was like my soul was turning that direction. I was not moving in my bed, but if I spun counterclockwise, I quickly learned I was going to have a rough night. I was being abducted to a dark place with the same entity. I know it now to be a dark elf that tried almost every single time to get me to think it was an angel. Biblical crap would fill my head. Pictures, words. I was not raised religious, so I rejected it and saw this elf as it truly was. I mean, all pitch black skinned, just truly evil frequency emitting thing. That scared me. It hurt me, and it raped me as a young child over and over and over. As the years passed, this nightmare developed from these dark elf traumas. It became a labyrinth that I was in. You know, this started when I was, early teens, and it went on for decades. This labyrinth, I was being hunted in it. Yeah, there was a minotaur. There was a downward horned, pointed, big beast. I had to do a lot of crazy things to survive in that. I'll speak more on this that I know that I got from it that was positive, because it's always about wrenching positive understandings from even negative things. That's what mastering your frequencies is about, really, right? These experiences are definitely where my fear of seeing people call angelics good is from.
Perhaps we have kind of covered this in great detail in the Angels and Demons show we did, or something similar to that name back in December. Maybe you can put your own spin on or knowledge on what you feel angels really are at this point.
Well, it's still evolving, but even the myths of Ireland, the people there, if you talk to the locals, they straight up call the elves angels. Angels, from where it's at now with my kind of instincts on them, they're broader angles of light and dark. Angels. They're broader angles of light and dark frequencies like us, but they have much more of their frequencies bandwidth at their use mastered. In many ways, they are the predecessors of our current version of human, the elves that left, the shining ones, and because it was time for man. But they didn't really leave, did they? I mean, obviously, I had one dogging me forever. So the shining ones, as their vessels in form, in physical, were from a time when this planet, when the planet they were on was at a higher frequency range, right? So that they were seen as shining because they were of a higher vibratory, broader frequency, broad band. The planet they're on, I know that I've followed this elf's frequencies, and at times I've seen them on Tiamat, and I think they came here from Tiamat, from the time Tiamat was destroyed to Tara being reformed. I know now that a great war between them occurred that is at the root of these dark magic elves, these dark elves doing what they've done here, playing a role in the dark magic that's been done. This is recounted quite accurately in the Norse myths and currently has awoken in many of us on a surface level with the movies, the likes of Avatar, which is very much the plant life there, being connected to the species. That was very much like how Tiamat was. The way it was it was lit up and interconnected, and trees held souls and things like that. It's true. And the Lord of the Rings movies, I read those books. The books are way better than the movies, but those two movies in particular actually really elicited a very deep response in humanity when they came out. From a cellular level to unconscious memory of these cataclysmic events, planets being destroyed, that all of a sudden, to quote Star Wars, there was a disturbance in the Force and many souls cried out. They lost their bodies suddenly, and even losing the planet to come back to, it was heavy, heavy stuff. And it's deep inside of us, and yeah. So, regardless of their orientation, these angels or angels of light, these elves, darker light, their magic came from their connection to the planet they were on. And, I'm reading a book right now called The Wizard's First Rule, and I just came across the part in the chapter where they spoke of additive magic, which is the magic of the real world, and the underworld magic being subtractive magic, where it's, so additive magic, you can only add on what's already there. Subtractive magic, you can undo. And in a way, that's what this war that, as I've heard, is over now, and they've come to a truce. Yet there's still some of these dark elves harvesting from us, gaining from us, feeling tortured and hunted in these places. The underworld magic, right? The left-hand path, whatever you want to call it. We'll get into magic later. But so the magic is connected to the earth. And the planetary consciousness, this magic, it seems miraculous to us now because of the distortions of and removal of this information, this knowledge within us, because we're so not in our hearts. We don't tap into knowing it anymore. But, so easily, that's how the elves became these angels, because their magic that they innately had access to, because of their more access to their spectrum of frequencies, it became miracles, and they became angels, and that's because of our ignorance. We're just as capable of reforging these connections and abilities in ourselves if we do the work to reclaim master our frequencies. So there was a good Dreamtime experience, too, that had to do with the spin, but it was a clockwise spin. So if I went counterclockwise, this elf would take me. If I went clockwise, I knew it was a native, lovely dreams, teachings from trees, walking through walls of fire that transformed my thinking and perspectives. At 7 years old, I would wake up with unfathomable concepts that bridged science, biology, with spirit. And, it was just wild, I had these visions of what I now know is cymatics, patterns, and the awareness of them being something really important. There's huge amounts of information that my mind could barely fathom, but it's in me now. It's like I can't say how many times over the last few years. I mean, that's why I don't need to have these dreams anymore. It's just like it's a present I keep unwrapping as long as I stay on my path.
Yep.
In 1976, 6 years old, I had my first waking ET sighting. My mother had night terrors well into her adulthood. It was pretty weird. Anyways, I woke up to her hooting like an owl, something she did often. And when I walked into her room to wake her up, I was stopped cold. I saw two faces just beyond the window pane beside her bed. One was a gray. The other was much taller, with huge dark eyes and a big triangle-shaped head. And I now know that as a mantid. As soon as they saw me see them, I got a loud clicking sound in my head, and it was coming from their direction, and it was just echoing around in my head, and it made me dizzy and feel oppressive, scared. I ran away. I didn't wake my mom up. I just took off. And the next morning, I remember there was no talking to my mom of this. I tried. She said only that she dreams of owls. This is my first major Cassandra moment. I even drew her a picture of them to show her. So picture your mom doing this crazy kid gestures, brushing it off with the 1,000-mile stare of someone who's been through some huge trauma. I remember staring up at her and just being horrified, seeing her this ignorant to the real situation. And I'm pretty sure I grew up a lot that day.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So this other one was fairly recurring, and these dreams were at the seed root of what came up this last 2 years, and that things that I saw in them were part of what unfolded this last 2 years that I had to face. So in these dreams, which were reoccurring again, I started to have them around 9. I was always running around like a small hilly town with really old houses, and one house in particular always appeared, and 3 witches of a vile sort of frequency, energy, which again terrified me and were hunting me. And when they found me, they had a silver rod, some sort of wand that they would zap me with at my temple. It hurt, and it would displace me. I don't know if it was other timelines or just it would displace my soul from my body, and it would trigger these visions of other lifetimes that I'd had, and often with them following me in those lifetimes. And it was very multidimensional, cross time and space. Many snippets of awful past life events, battles, being a man, soldier, and really, really, really awful experiences of being at rituals involving children. These 3 witches. So, I moved over to the Big Island of Hawaii from Canada in 1982, and I started to my waking sight, otherworld sight, really started to kick in at this time. I'd run into ghosts. I saw the menahunes, which are the Hawaiian version of little people. Well, they're not that little, but and other nature spirits. Some of them are nasty, really demanding, and mess with your head. But some were playful and still mischievous. And from either experience, I definitely learned something. I started to open up and try to share, because I was in Hawaii, that's where my grandparents were, and they didn't shut me down. So I actually started to share what I was seeing with them, and they didn't call me crazy. They just thought I was imaginative.
Yeah.
So, because of seeing the ghosts, I think I began to start to walk spirits over at this time. Though it took me years to figure out that was what I was doing. Seemingly random locations that I was in would trigger it, or I would have the feeling that something followed me home, and I would dream and have this odd conversation with a stranger or someone I knew who had died. It would go something like this: "You do know you can stop dying now, right?" Kind of, come on, let's go, kind of experience. And some people, it was a bit of a struggle. They honestly didn't know they were dead. And I had to talk them out of sort of a trapped mind state that they were in. Whatever usually was going on for them when they died, they think that they could still do that, but everything had changed, right? They lost their body. So I would usually, after I go through this sort of like mental wrestling with them to try to get them to realize they didn't have a body anymore. And then it was time to move on. I would walk them to some hallway or door, stairs, or whatever came up. It was always different. And there was always a point where I could go no further with them. You know, obviously, I'm not dead. But usually, you know, I told them that a certain person would see them wherever they were going at that point, you know. Never once did I see a light or heard it reported.
Big white light. Oops.
No. Just, you know, it's just sort of strange constructs. It was, you know, usually based on their particular lexicon, their beliefs, you know. I never really saw anyone else, but it would come to me if I was to tell them if someone else would see them wherever they were going. Someone would meet them. That happened a few times. You know, and so this is the 80s, right? I also began to have this is when the attacks started to really get bad. And it possibly had to do with this walking people over. You know, I was beginning to truly activate. So I began to have this really intrusive, negative, telepathic words and thoughts. And I knew it really wasn't coming from me. Headaches, nausea, and I had a constant state of anemia going on no matter how much Floridix or iron I took. You know, I was constantly exhausted. And it seemed to be related to locations I was in, as in certain places I suffered, and others I miraculously suddenly did not. Even the physical symptoms would disappear in other places. I thought that was very odd. I did observe that. But it was also a major Easter egg in terms of being a hint about who I was around, how sensitive we are to other people, and what is on them.
Yep.
And, yeah. And sometimes the histories of the land, you know, the ghosts that I was encountering and working with by then. So this happened in Hawaii, this next one, and I think I told it on the Shane podcast, but I want to retell it. So I was like 20 at this time, and I was still living on the Big Island of Hawaii. And it was not a dream. It was a waking experience. And I was sitting on the second story of a house that was still being built. It had no walls on that side of the house I was sitting on. So I was up around, you know, about halfway to three-quarters of the way up eye level with trees. And I saw a glimmer in the forest that grew bigger, like a big, huge, sparkly area. And I go to wipe my eyes. I'm like, what's going on? I can't, you know. We always try to dispel it, right? And it just kept being there. And I just sort of gave into it and just unfocused my eyes and just tried to see reality as it was. I remember specifically having that thought. And this 20-plus foot tall being with a very prominent brow that almost made their nose like go straight up. It didn't curve in like ours does. So its eyes are really deep set. And it had this very light kind of earthen colored hooded cloak. And it stepped free of this glimmer, this shimmering spot that I first saw it as. And it locks eyes with me. It shyly kind of waves. And as soon as I locked eyes with it, it brought back another dream that I had had several times. I wouldn't call it reoccurring. I had it a few times when I was younger. But this dream was experienced on a different level through the connection with this giant. All the sensory experiences of the dream were just heightened. I quickly realized it was not just a dream. It was a memory. So I was at the foot of a pyramid, speaking with a lionid humanoid, a king that I felt I had great respect for, and he me. I was very much human at this time. His lionid daughter stood to the left of him. Others were there, behind them and me, guarding what felt to be a very furtive last conversation before a war. Canid humanoids, dog-headed humans were there too. That was as far as this dream would go when I was younger. This dream memory went further through the giant's connection to me, through our eyes locking that day. It completed, in essence, to a level that if I had had this full dream when I was younger, I think I would have been really upset. So there's a reason why we don't see things fully. I guess our heart, our spirit, our full self spirit understands what we can take and what we can't. So at 20, I was gifted with the rest of this memory. And there was a war. A brutal one in which I saw many magical creatures who were real to me in this memory, who were my friends. And I saw them die brutally alongside humanity. I saw elves fighting alongside humans. The real enemy was kind of unseen. There was a key feeling of betrayal at the sight of a laser-type weapon coming from the sky, which seemed to be the point of this dream for me to remember, this betrayal. I saw giants also fighting alongside us. Other sort of satyrs, all sorts of creatures. I knew them, and it was really heartbreaking. I don't remember the exact moment, but I know I died because my view went to both above and below of this scene. My consciousness then went into a great tree where from the tree, which I went to on purpose because the daughter of the Leonid king was running towards it, and she fell as she died at the foot of the tree. And it's really kind of odd even relaying this verbally, but I caught her when she fell at the tree. That's why I went to the tree, and we went deep into the earth, and streams of tears that just popped out of my eyes, and rage was burning in me. It was absolutely on fire, and it's caused the giant to release me, and he just sort of humbly bowed and disappeared. And I knew that this took place somewhere far west of the Nile, in a place that used to be green, near a big body of water. Somehow whenever I think of it, I think of it's something to do with a crocodile. It's called that now, but it's several layers under, and it has to do with a far back time that you were also here, Tommy. But this is part of.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we were together then. I think they have discovered this through that ground radar thing. It's like 4 layers down of ruins. Like several. It's far underneath the sands there. So, but this betrayal and how hard we've been fighting and how long I've been here is kind of It's part of why I get so urgent, to say the least, and the need to uncover this betrayal, these deceptions. I know only this, that it had to do, that the betrayers had to do with the groups that destroyed Maldek, Tiamat, Selene, the other planet nearby. And it was the deception that I know that I was speaking with, because what the Leonid King was around their claim that they were making good on that event by helping with this newest wave of invaders, in quotes. Yeah, so the whole thing, I see still, even now, I see images of these tall blondes and avians and Dracos even, dark-skinned elves and others being involved, the science, tech, priests that sort of caused the split in Lemuria to Atlantis and then reseeded it at this time in Egypt from very long ago that's not recorded in history. It's not the raw one. It's the Egypt while we were still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not when we were gone, because that Egypt was restarted and with them in place of us impersonating teachers. Yeah. So, from 2000 onward, these the astral attacks on me, because I guess I was maturing and getting stronger, became like way more direct, shall I say. I was seeing reptilians, even though I didn't know what they were then. I had sleeping and waking paralysis, being raped. The smell of them, like acrid rot and sulfur. I had depression, and malicious telepathic messages also spiked again. I took up meditations to take back my mental space, and it worked, but it didn't stop what they were doing. Then I started to work as a nurse. And with the second year into it, I was worked on medicine, often post-operative care. And I began to see energy-sapping, leech-like slugs attached on people's incisions post-surgery. I'm at work. I got to keep my head about me. Just really. What the fuck? Sorry. Yeah. My boyfriend at the time was also was an amputee. He lost his lower leg to cancer, and his phantom pain triggered an awareness and sight of a great net, sick, dark, anti-life net, and I could see all these amputated limbs of people in it, and it was pulsing energy off of them. And it was connected to the individual in waking life here, not in the astral. I think their phantom pain is all triggered by this in the astral. Yeah. A lot of the stuff, was coming close to pushing me over the edge. I didn't speak about it. So by 2013, I pretty much had it. I wanted to be free of the things that were hunting me, hurting me in the astral, hurting others. I could always see, smell, and feel them in glimpses. My hips and my female organs were in such bad shape from the constant sexual assaults on me, and it wasn't warranted. I wasn't doing anything myself to do that. I started growing these ovarian cysts, my mind, however, was getting stronger. No more intrusive words in my head. So I began a daily circle of protection practice that I got off someone that I found on the internet, on YouTube, to try and end what I then, at that time, highly suspected was astral attachments. And I had been doing a calling, yes, an invocation to the four winds. And I guess I used the Greek words for them, Boreas, the north wind, came forth in the first month. Yeah, the north wind, the north. The first month of doing it, his presence came forth and interacted with me. It's this massive, rocky, ancient presence, like a mountain. Or was it the mountain? It came from a mountain, or was it the mountain? Very ancient feeling, and just embraced me in surprise, at finding my presence here, or calling to it. And this experience elicited flashes of imagery and geometric patterns and elements and multiple lifetime glimpses, and all that kind of spoke to some of the earlier, clockwise spiral dreams that I'd had. It was very, very intense. So I continued doing that practice to try and, strengthen and get myself awake in the astral and get these things off of me. And I remember one day I did this certain one that's you sit in like basically a suit of armor, which is a symbol of a protective shield. And I had, I was supposed to call to a guardian, and I had this black panther show up. And this panther was circling me. I'm awake, right? I'm having this vision, this sort of meditative state vision. And it licked my third eye with her rough tongue. And it hurt, but it opened something. And as she was circling around me, and as she was at the back of me, I felt this great tug from my back that jolted my whole body strongly, and I was actually throttled to the floor. This thing was pulled out of my back, and I just lay there on the floor of my apartment, and I was still in this deep into this vision, and this panther, like I touched her, and then I kind of felt like I was riding her, or was her. I can't kind of figure it out, but I remember just running off into the dark with this panther presence. And the dark day, like, it didn't feel scary at all. It felt like I knew where I was going. And the intention of this, like, to call a guardian was to, like, was to go in a very protected state and to seek out, like, do soul retrievals, find parts of yourself, or connect with your whole self. That was the original intention. So I'm riding, or I am this panther, and I'm running off into the dark. And I remember coming up upon, like, still in the dark, but it was a water's edge. And out from the water came this woman's face. And she was super shy. She just barely made eye contact with me, and she looked at me with such sadness. And then I saw her body was very, very long, a dragon. I reached out to touch her, and she just slipped away back into the dark waters. And I came to on the floor. I was shaky. I wasn't scared. It was a pretty wild experience. And the feeling of whatever that was on my back, it was some sort of a dark magic bind, I felt a huge lift in life force energies within me. I was really perplexed at the sadness of that water dragon woman that I saw, and it was a major hint about how much more I had to go through to get free. The labyrinth dreams came more frequently after this, I remember, and the return of the ailments of anemia, in quotes, low energy, low self-worth, and depression. Despite this, yeah.
Well, that was quite a lot to go through. Water serpent dragon. I've met some of those entities before. And we're going to go into a musical break. And you chose this song, I would imagine, to express part of how the last experience you related and how it makes you feel. Is that the case?
Yeah. There's some lyrics in it. Heroes will rise as the anchors fall. That's what I felt like.
This is Maluka and the Beauty of Dawn song. We'll be back shortly. Hi all, and welcome back to An Evening with Thomas. And we have more from Chloe, and we touched on some of her visions, and I'd like to cover the shielding practice and how we can develop and grow our ability to see things with our own inner sight, not outer difference. And the more we do our inner work, some of these abilities, which is in your so-called junk DNA, switches on.
Yeah, the shielding practice can be really effective if you make it your own, but without any invoking of any deities, angels, or other hoopla. We need to be the masters of our own auric sphere. That means really owning it mentally and emotionally, being strong about your conviction and belief that it is your sacred space alone. So any shielding practice only works to the extent that a person is willing to admit to being accountable for their own mind and emotional states, and especially how much they believe in themselves. If we're convinced of something like we're a victim, like I was, obviously, with all these hunting dreams, or a martyr, or I'm all light, denying all the dark, it just won't protect you. You won't see these things. You saw something about me that I did not see after this thing was pulled out of my back. Yeah. Tommy saw that I was in this mirror magic energetic cage. It was mirrored. It was barring my being seen by people I think that could help me. But you helped me. You helped me immeasurably to get free of it. You could only reach towards me so far, though. It was me. I had to stretch up and break out of the top of this thing. That's what made the difference. I had to act. Someone's seeing us wherever we are at, hidden in our dark mirror magic cage or other dark situation, and they hold out their hand. That's our choice alone to accept it and reach for it, to want help, to get us to inspire, to help ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. You're talking about the first time I was led to use the spiral shield from below the feet to above, and what is kind of common, I've thought, for many people who I've done it for, you were stuck at the throat, and you had to break out of the egg. But you needed someone to guide you on the path and then pull you out.
Yeah, you straight up yelled out at me. Reach up, get out. We have to do it ourselves. We have to do the work to get free. At each and every one of those dream time and waking experiences I just spoke about, I learned something about myself that I needed to face, to adapt and survive, or to absorb the teachings. It was up to me. To reopen my heart after the scary experiences. so I could begin to heal and process what I was being retaught about the ways of nature and ourselves. It's this way with all of us. We can either not see the opportunity, not see the door, or we can, and we can help each other across the river, if we're helping ourselves first. Another reoccurring dream I had that started when I was 12. This was one that was this first dream was very, very potent, and I was very distracted by it for months and months after I had it. I was standing in the stream in a big field, and the wind was blowing, and I could hear distant sounds of cows. And then a cow appeared right in front of me, and kind of like the giant's experience, as soon as I locked eyes with it, they were like deep, warm pools of kindness, compassion, love. And this moment stuck for a moment. We stared into each other's eyes, and I felt this. And then she turned her body to show me her hoof that she'd lifted. And on it was a glyph. I won't say sigil. Maybe it was. I don't know. But I'm going to keep it to myself. But the sight of this symbol triggered me to open to this reoccurring dream experience, this certain environment that came up over and over for decades. And it was a scene with a river the size of the Grand Canyon, dry, no water, but it was filled with human beings tumbling uncomfortably, flowing, trying to flow down it. One of the songs that we caught on to a couple of years back, the Highly Suspect song, My Name is Human, the lyrics in it that went, the bigger the river, the bigger the drought, struck me hard when I heard them. They made me recall these dreams, unfolded another layer of understanding about why I saw this dreamscape environment specifically. We, humans, have been in a drought of spiritual development, past where we've been held back at by ourselves and by the off-world and on-world human controllers, stealing our ancestors' ways and knowledge of respecting and honoring our connection to the earth, all life here. A spiritual path that taught us how to be in alignment with our true self and life and the earth. In these dreams, a man-shaped like a man-shaped form would get my attention. I say it that way because it's very strange. It was the outline of a human form. He would get my attention, and I was in the river of humanity too, right? He always did this and pulled me out, like whistled at me or clapped or something. His form was filled with space, blacker than black, void-like, dimensionally. When I would look at it, it would move and undulate. It was dimensional, multi-dimensional. He'd pull me out and he would teach me things that are beyond words, but are within me even now. Concepts that are unfolding and come to surface as I'm ready to understand a bit more of them. And one of these concepts he taught me was our bodies, our mind and a heart, are all connected to the planet and the universe itself. I felt the other humans in the river. The river was also in space. I saw and felt the river, its ripples in his black void form inside of him. And he showed me that what we did, what we thought and felt, ran through all planes of existence. What I've now come to understand about this is that we each are individual, but we're not hive mind in our interconnection at all. We have free will, but in the main it's not been activated by our own choice or non-choice. We've allowed it to be hijacked by the actions of the controllers here, re-traumatizing, triggering the collective wounds from the past in our energy centers, and co-opting our original nature-based spirituality, our practices that regrew our connection and remastery of our energy-generating capabilities, of our reality-creating capabilities. You know, the religions, the religiaires that have bombed our minds, thinking and feelings of ourselves. I know the connection within us to all life here was meant to help us heal from the trauma of the cataclysms our spirits have suffered. This connection has been severed in perception, and some do not even feel the increasing energies coming from the planet into us by this connection, you know, because the trauma and re-traumatizing of ourselves is blocking it. We've been programmed to not feel we're part of nature. From the Abrahamic religion's impact on our societies, regardless if we're religious this lifetime or not. In one of these river dreams, this void being man re-experienced a lifetime I had as a Native American. I was on a beach, and I was watching my father burning all of our things, pouches, masks, other carvings, bowls, that were made by my family. I was watching him throw them on the fire, and some of them were handed down to us from our ancestors. They were precious things to us. And I remember crying and being so confused, asking why he was doing this. And the scene changed, and I was in front of a white painted building, and there was this priest that scared the shit out of me. He was shaking a burning picture of us, of us in the native lifetime. And the warning was clear. Stay away from religion this life. Okay, I said to myself. It's as if I had been very religious in other lifetimes that this warning was needed, but it was really strongly put forth. So I had this River of Humanity dream for over 10 years, and the amount of teachings I got from it are uncountable. I'm still drawing on the wisdom seeds they planted. It's up to me to water them, right? Yep. That means staying on my path, right? So I cannot express how important it is to water this river, to cry and let go and let the tears wash away what you need to let go of, grief. It was a dry riverbed with humanity just uncomfortably tumbling over each other. It's really important to truly let go. And I say that as much to myself as I'm saying that to others, and we need to let go so we can let more of the flowing of our own frequencies to come. The receiving and sending out of our energies to come.
You still want your song break for this?
No, I'm good.
All right.
So I was going to play the Humbling River song, but I think most members know of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a return of this dream in November of 2018. I was really surprised, and I wasn't dreaming, actually, so I shouldn't call it that, but it was obviously of the same sort of dreamscape, but it was a waking vision. I was not asleep. The river in this dream was full of humanity on fire, not in pain, but their bodies, like the void being, dimensionally black void space, the human bodies were pure fire. And I was sort of seeing this going, wow. And I couldn't feel them in pain, so they were just on fire. And so I'm beholding this, and I'm holding it lightly, waiting for whatever thing to happen next. And all of a sudden, the humans start to pulse through each and every one of their unintegrated shadow parts. And I mean it. They were just alight with their own fears, their own passions, their own drives, their own states of thinking and being. And I started to like try and focus in more to see what was really happening with this pulsing of fire-filled humans, and I started to see different visages, different individual faces in this huge river filled with humans on fire. And some were screaming in rage, and some were crying, and some were like zombies. Each person was just absolutely pulsating through many different visages of their own hungry shadows, demons, and I was viscerally seeing every place everyone was stuck inside of them. And it was kind of uncomfortable to watch. But it was kind of interesting in the same time because of the pulsing aspect of it. This is I remember, because I've read a lot of Gnostic and other alchemical texts before I met you, Tommy, and I remember telling you about the crucible. The crucible that is us, that is burning away the dross, the impurities, the things that get in the way of ourselves. I can't remember where I read about this, probably in one of the myths. But, and I had a Rowena Petit Kreider's tarot deck, and she had some cards in there that were also from my previous readings about the alchemical stage of calcination. And that's when the element of fire to burn away dross and reveal hidden essences within. It's difficult to go through these experiences. I saw them in this way, in a way to speak to what was happening to myself and others. You get stuck in these you can get stuck in these states and identify with our wounds. Like when I was a nurse, you don't say, this is our cancer patient. You say their name first. We're not our disease. We're not our disability. We're not our inner demons, the shadow parts of us. That's not who we are. But we get stuck identifying with our traumas, especially if we deny their existence. Then they can control us as if it's something external because we haven't integrated it. So the fire and water theme I've had for many of my dreams. Fire is very much a catalyst in chemistry. It changes things. It breaks the bonds of molecules of physical reality, leaving ash. The impure dross are separated from what flies up into the air, becomes aether. Fire purifies the way to our spirit. It destroys the programming, the thoughts that limit our access to our frequencies. And it's change. And we fear change. And that's why a lot of people are having their shadow work issues come up right now. And the waterless river of humanity, water changes things too. But you have to be willing to allow your own exploration of your emotions. That's what water's element is. It's about our emotions. And washing away, letting go of those impurities that the fire of feeling that betrayal or feeling the pain of whatever it is, that anger that rises in us. Then we have to grieve it. And that'll reveal more of who you are. Fire and water. This is alchemical stages of development.
Yeah, water and fire make ether, the fifth element. And when they combine, transmute, which is
to become aether, yeah.
It's a big process. When their energies cross the other elements, the others can only transmute from changing from one to the next.
Yep.
But fire and water can transcend the cycle altogether.
Yep. Yeah, they're very unique in that they can If you look up the imagery of it, it's often a square with aether in the center, and the elements can only change from one from the other around the square. Fire and water, which are opposite each other, can actually go straight across and become aether spirit. You know, yeah, we covered that when we first met, you know.
Yep.
So, in a nutshell, well, this is getting closer. I mean, this possibly, I'm trying to speed up here. I realized something very big recently about what I've been going through over and over in my life, because it comes in increasingly strong waves. While I was listening to a Sathika Boza Black Earth Productions video, the one called The Cosmic Law of Alchemy, I listened to it a couple of times. The word for what I've been going through will cause some reactions, as the dark magicians have used this word and inverted its meaning to be something about what they do. You know, eyes wide shut, whatever, you know. So know that when I say it, it's about the original meaning, a person evolving to the next level of development, a person trying to heal, drop all within that is causing strife outwardly, to return to being in alignment with one's own core essence, not anyone else's. Yeah. I had been going through a hardcore initiation pretty much all my life. It's been repeating in stages. These were the clockwise spiral starting dreams when I was not being taken by the dark elf. And, you know, some things that our dark elf taught me about myself were also initiations, you know. The fire portals I experienced walking through, and tree teachings, and water. I would see this collective sea. I would be in this sea of pure emotional sensations. These were experiences I was given by my whole self spirit to remind me of who and what I was, and who we are all potentially, and how to return to being that. Initiations often mean losing something, people, even ourselves, even who we were, especially if we're identifying with our trauma. In many ways, you know, you have to destroy the old self to make room for new growth. You know, development in the psyche. We have to smash the mask of the traumatized persona. You know, I first lost everything at the age of 7. And I do mean everything. I mean, a house fire burned up most all of my childhood things. My parents divorced, which was a good thing. My family scattered across the continent. I lost everything again for the 4th time just before I met you, Tommy. I still have only 9 boxes of things to my name, minus the bed I just purchased. I mean, stuff doesn't matter to me. Detachment from possessions is part of the initiation process. You know, stuff cannot define us. But our attachment to our personality, our identity as the person we are now, is an issue in our human experience. You know, our attachment to who we are, if we don't like it, we try to claim we're something else. This gets in the way of our spiritual development. This is another recurring childhood dream concept. Before sleep, I would have this odd experience of seeing 2 images flash back and forth in my mind's eye. One was a chaotic, disruptive static, and then the other was a calm, simple, wavy line. And this would flash back and forth, and until I would kind of go mad with the disparity, the polar opposites of both of the feelings of seeing these images. And I would have no choice but to give in. And I would give in to it, and it would stop. And I would next feel this membrane up against me that would further challenge me to let go. I would have this great fear of loss of sense of self. I'd feel it really intensely. And I knew I had to let that go too. So I'd let go. And I know this is a big fear in most people. What happens when we die? We lose all we've become, attained, our personality, our experiences. Ironically, though, when at the ages of 5 to 8, when I had this experience, I learned to let go of who I was. I literally would imagine being nothing. And that was fine with me. And I broke through this membrane and found myself floating in everything and nothing. It felt like bliss. It felt like home. It was dark. It was warm, enveloping, and it felt like where I know I could explore all that I was, from all that my spirit has ever experienced. And it felt like a place where I could process, where I could dream up possibilities. It was just a really amazing, expanding experience, and in some ways I think this was like a source experience, but it was more than source. It was all that is, right? And, I was so young. I couldn't express it, but I was absolutely giddy on the mornings I woke up after these experiences. I'd go straight outside and I wouldn't come home all day. Yeah. So, this is so far from the struggle that we have in the mundane here, but the struggle's where it's at, because that's what we need to get through, to come to know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about isn't just mine alone. I know that other people have described this place, but we've identified so deeply with what's happened to us because it's been hammered into us, and how, this is why the Shane Bales has that quote, the old dead Greek guy, what's his name, Epictetus? I can't even pronounce it. Anyways, it's on his Facebook, but it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters.
Pretty much, yeah. We've got much change in frequencies, which has been reported in the show, and some people are not reacting to it too well, and other people are, and it's making changes that are essentially triggering, and this is something that we discussed 6 years ago, and about the time that you and I started to talk of the need to do the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
It's connected, is it not?
Oh yeah. No, the river of humanity, the facing of this stuff, we're all connected. We're not a hive mind, but we're connected. And the planetary consciousness is raising and deepening. She's going back to her full pendulum sweep, broad spectrum, broader than we can imagine, dynamic, and because it's long past time that she returned to that, and we're on her. So what's happening to us is a micro reflection of where she has been, and that is reduced by pain and trauma of wars, blood spilt on her soils and her waters, and our toxic ways. And we are connected, and our need to heal ourselves and open up to our own full spectrum of frequencies and seemingly magical abilities is how we can ride that frequency wave. It's only made more difficult by our non-choice or denial of shadow work. So people often ask in this community, what can they do to help? We can help by riding the wave and working on ourselves. So, it's kind of like us acting like an anchor if we're not doing that work. She's going to do it regardless, the planet, but don't underestimate the connection and the cries from those of us that are having a hard time. It's like the static image of that duality image I was seeing. We're cross-currenting with where the planet body is going. But Again, it's a choice that each person has to come to in their own way or not. I mean, I experienced this myself quite viscerally over the last 2 years and have broken through it.
Pretty much, you can't push the river. So
Yep.
Some people try, and they'll keep following and selling the lie as long as they believe it.
Yep.
And that's a big part of why I do these shows, to uncover the lies, to unlearn the lies, and then relearn the truth.
Yeah.
Real our story, not his story.
Yeah.
And the spiritual aspect of us, so we know where we can actually focus our energy instead of just playing their game.
Yeah. And creating their reality. Yeah.
So why do we want to play their game? What they do matters not to us. It's what we do that matters.
We don't feel empowered enough to know that we can create our own reality, which isn't a game.
No.
I mean, people term this place the playground of life, but, it's time for us to grow up, Again, it's about unsticking yourself to make the choice, again, to stop playing this dangerous game. I walk down that road again with myself, denying what's in the dark of our unconscious that needs to be brought into the light and dealt with for all it's worth, blessings and gifts.
Pretty much.
I said to, I think it was Shane a bit ago, and he said, that's well put. I don't think I have it exactly worded the same way I said it that time, but just sort of popped out. I said it's like our damaged parts are bouncing off of each other's, resulting in the shit show now we have in the truther community.
Pretty much.
Accusations, assumptions, reactions, not hearing each other and just doing what your ego wants, not what humanity needs.
No. Well, maybe we should touch on ego. Ego will let you see something about yourself at times, and some people kind of think, get rid of ego. No, it's about balance. It's 45-55 again. You don't get rid of ego. It's part of you. It's about learning to control it. I mentioned earlier I was rather insecure about starting up doing radio shows, and I was kind of concerned. I had my own insecurities of not being good enough, and also concerned about people who were around me at that time whose egos were kind of off the charts, and whether I would go the same way.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I managed to control it, and in fact I get constant complaints about I'm too humble and I don't want to take my own credit and whatnot, but I would sooner be that way than someone who's completely off the charts.
No, well, you came at it from the other polarity. You knew you were insecure, so you didn't have insecurity as the root of your ego. Whereas other people didn't acknowledge their insecurity, so they were coming at it egoically. And there's a lot of talk show hosts out there that are very egoic. They talk over their interviewees. They try to control the conversation. It's envy that's behind this people's agendas to control. And they have to project their needs and wants and faults onto others. And you never once showed any envy. You only showed a solid drive to find truth. Envy, jealousy, you spoke on it earlier, is why the false controllers from off-world to on-world do what they do. They envy our capabilities. They have partaken so much of our life force energies, the glands, secretions, whatnot, to attain what we have without doing the work. And because they haven't done the work, it's failed to give them what we have. But they're all still laughing at us because we haven't reclaimed what we have. We fight the war that they started. We play power over games with each other. We compare and compete over what we perceive others have and we do not, instead of creating it for ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much.
I projected my fears of angels and entities attachments. And that's what led me to be a little too strong in my ways of expression, because I saw a lot of people still basically invoking stuff to them, and they were completely ignorant of it. If you focus on the negative, focus on the all the times and the ways you've died. I mean, part of that throat chakra block is because I've been beheaded, hung, throat cut. I remember tons of those deaths. It's no wonder I had a block at my throat. Plus, the fact that this isn't the first life that I've tried to come close to figuring out how to get strong in here. This is the whitebird and the blackbird, mastering our polarities. They seem like they're opposite feelings inside of us. They're actually the same in frequency, only different sides of the same coin. Yep. The power we put behind magic, behind creating, manifesting, adding to what is already there. The fuel for that goes into being able to accomplish that is being a master of our emotions. So it's not, you said controlling your ego. It's mastering your ego. Yeah. And to master it is to really know it. Ego is low self-worth. Sadness is joy. This is what's on the other side of it, the coin. And to allow the pendulum of your frequencies to swing free, you need to actually kind of visit each extreme polarized emotional state that your thoughts, your recurring thoughts about yourself will tell you of. But you have to be observant, be accountable, and notice this happening. You behold them until you can see, feel, and touch the sameness of each other extreme of the same frequency. The sadness, the joy, the low self-worth, the ego, or the victim, or the martyr. You can do a series of inquiries about yourself. Okay, so I feel this way. I feel really sad. What's underneath that sadness? Oh, it's anger. What's underneath that anger? Oh, it's this. You keep inquiring what's underneath that feeling, until you get to the bottom of it. Then you're truly at that extreme. And you behold that from like an observer, detached, just behold it. And then you go to the other extreme. Okay, so what if joy, or what if I felt confident, I felt good about myself? That tends to resolve the extreme. That resolves the polarity. Absolutely. And at that state, at that moment, when you're like in the 45-50, the balance again, the triality, above seeing the whole picture, that's when those entities are seen. That's when you see the chords. And you see exactly where it goes into in a certain energy center, and it's usually got something to do with the series of inquiries into the emotional states, that arena of life, around love, or around self-worth, or around sensuality instead of sexuality, right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough dance.
So, this energetic interaction between us. It's at a whole nother level of awareness entirely, to factor in that we are all connected to and interact with each other and the planet and the universe. by the frequencies we receive and send out. This is why we need each other. To help us, help ourselves and our planet. Know thyself was above the ancient libraries and mystery school doorways for this reason. We could stop being energetic slaves for the false controllers through our wounds, by healing them.
Yep. That is the ultimate goal, really. We say and think we want freedom at times. Freedom from what? People will go slavery. How many people realise that they're slaves? Not many.
Yep.
Because they look but don't see. They feel but don't sense.
Yep.
There's a difference. And I'm kind of trying to convince others of another way to think and act different to get free. You cannot carry on doing the same things. Humanity has been kind of stupid, very stupid. We've spoken about the loops. With the abilities humanity had, they should have been out of the loops a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah, I know there's interference. We're not negating that, but you have your own free will and your own manifest abilities and your own magic, and chose to let others do it for you. And this is a big problem of humanity. It's a problem playing out now, where they're asking others, whether it's me or whether it's Kim or Neil, heaven forbid, Neil Keenan or Drake or Corey Good or Wilcock or the Blue Avians.
Come on! I'm working on accepting where people are at. I'm working on accepting wherever anyone's at.
It's all savior programs, which has been repeated through several loops. That's why I haven't been in this one too often. Because people have to start standing. We have people asking for their own sovereignty. No, you are sovereign. You just have to enforce it.
Yeah, no piece of paper is going to give you that as much as claiming it for your own sphere of influence in your own auric field.
And getting away from the comparative mindset. It's damaging. You can't just simply carry on and go, well, humanity wants to be free. You have to make that happen. But there's so many have been programmed with lies and disinfo, and they have to unlearn that, and that's what they've been doing with our show. Unlearning the lies, and not just believing a new set of words because it comes from me and they trust me. I want people to go out and research for themselves, but then they get a deeper understanding of
then they own it.
Where that information came from. In essence, reclaiming their own sovereignty.
Yep. We have forgotten we have won.
Yeah. Just
by being here still. The collective low self-worth issues, the victim, martyr, God mindsets, all smacks of abandonment issues. I mean, everyone's got it, and, in a lot of ways, this is, again, it goes back to the Wizard's First Rule, the book I'm reading right now. The astral, the fourth and fifth dimensions are overlaid right where we are in 3, the third plane.
Yep.
I don't use the word dimensions. Your planes. They're overlaid here through the cataclysmic traumas that we've experienced in the lives that we've had here, lifetimes we've had here. And we recreate and reinforce this overlay with our wounds being unhealed. We basically recreate the hells of our own making and others' making right here and now. that realization got me on a much deeper level. I knew it before, but it got me in a much deeper level in 2016. I had a lot of healing to do. I lost myself still trying to function on social media. And the interactions I saw, felt as an empath, triggered the heck out of me. Again, I could feel people's frequencies, their energies through their written text. And especially if I spoke with them. And some people I could help, but others I just could not. They would just be right back at it the next day. It was as if the whole 3-hour conversation I just had with them didn't even happen. So in a sense, leaving the bigger Facebook groups was a good thing. It helped me to not feel them anymore. I also kind of have a feeling that the collective of humanity dreams I was having was a double-edged sword. It felt like a bind in a way to kind of keep me awash in overwhelming feelings about what I was picking up off of. But I think that's a lot of what a lot of empaths have to deal with. And so, it was a culmination, of all the things I talked about with the home environment that I shared with you at that time, and the memories that were coming up in me. I just kind of broke. I broke down, and I didn't break through until the beginning of this last year, and that's when I got to the core wound within myself. There's a lot of things that I did that made it a lot worse for myself and others, and I feel bad about that, but I'm forgiving myself because that's what we need to do. We need to let go. So probably now's good for the Cry Like a Baby song.
Okay, we'll be back shortly. Cry Like a Baby by the Sharks. Hi all, and welcome back to An Evening with Thomas, and we've got Chloe Kirker with us today, reliving her past life, traumas, joys, pain, strange experiences, spiritual experiences, and a whole heap of other things. Given the questions that or the pointers that Chloe gave me, we're only halfway through, and so we will carry on for a bit longer. Maybe a later time that suits both of us, we can do a part 2 to this, given we've just coming up to 3 hours. Normally the last 3 hours, but I think there's about another 2 hours left, and we haven't got that much radio time, so we'll carry on with what we've got. And that song, Cry Like a Baby, and something about that song being releasing pain, is it not? Things that you feel bad about doing, and life and trauma in general. Absolutely. It kind of comes in waves. I remember Kim saying, we learned our best lessons from the dark, and some of the work that we've done, we've learned some lessons, and we have snuffed their lessons out and created new ones, and this is what happens when you process those bad elements, the dark experiences, if you want to call it that way, and treat it as a lesson. You said earlier about how you react to it. If you're going to go into have dark experiences, of which trauma and pulling trauma out generally entails, then you've got to be able to transmute it into a better way, and this is the key to it. The shadow is not getting rid of the shadow, it's integrating it and then processing it, release the parts that you don't need, forgive yourself, and you move forward. But too many people live in the external. And this is, there's about 5 words I keep using in the shows. The internal, external, convenience, which is damaging, comparative mindset, a lack of thinking, and a lack of and not acting. They're the core essence of the show, and it's also those 5 cliches, if you like. It is, unless we address them, unless we think and act different, we're going to loop again. Unless we stop the comparative mindset, which comes into ego and all the other stuff, we're going to carry on. We're going to carry on fighting each other, you know. And if we keep going external, God is outside of us. ETs are outside of us, and space and the universe is all outside of us when it's all inside. You know, yeah, but it's all about everything. It comes back to balance again, the 45-55, you know. Yeah, heart and mind in balance. You know, the more you're in heart, the more wisdom you gain. That can then help the processing of what you need to face, rather than going at an ego and an external, or from a fear-based that comes from the mind. Fear doesn't come from the heart, it comes from the mind. Would yeah. 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 Pretty much. Pretty much. It was what I was trying to help you with back in 2016, was it not? When you're beginning to face the core wound in yourself. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that all too well. It was kind of a strange time for me in many ways of how do you suddenly put into words or face the reality of this. And I'm not a violent person in nature. Suddenly, yes, it was rather violent, and it kind of shocked me in many ways, and it changed my whole perspective on kind of what's really been going on here. But it also reinforced my desire, if you want of a better term, of defending others rather than the self. It's something that's gone through, I got into a lot of trouble in school defending others because it's the right thing to do. And that's what kind of kicked that first battle off with some of the really strange beings, shall we say, Dulces, brown bear type beings that were about 8 foot tall, you name it, elves. Yeah. Yep. That was, yeah. Yeah, there was a mixture of like decoys. These I call them I'm not versed in the myths and all that stuff, and I called them the Jesuits, and they looked similar to those. You didn't see the facial features. It was just a brown coat with a hood, which I termed the Jesuits, and some of them were in that Christopher Walken movie, kind of similar, like the trolls things, and so I just describe it as based on my own knowledge. I don't read books, I never have read books, I'm not versed in mythology and all the other trappings that go with that, so there was some that were real and some that were not. It's only when you hit them with a sword that you find out what's real and what's not. probably the parents. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. pretty much. We're going to probably end this part on this, because there's a lot more that needs to go into more depth into of your story, and I will make the time to do a part 2 with you. It's a traumatic story, and it's a common theme. Maybe not as deep as you've gone into or covered or experienced, but everyone deals with trauma in different ways. Some fight it and some hide it. In fact, most hide it, and this plays into lifetime experiences as well. And there's often the discussion of should we remember past lives? Well, I covered this recently in a show about everyone I've spoken to who remembers past lives, including the one main memory I have is about trauma, pain and hurt. We had Michelle Hansack on recently, and I helped her with an issue that she'd struggled with most of her life, of a past life memory of she was a commander of a craft who was rescuing people off the planet, and she got I think she was a he at the time, memory serves me correctly. Michelle managed to get many off, but it wasn't the joy of saving people that was her memory. It was the loss of the ones that were left behind. And the loss of the planet as well, which I know you've gone through, and we'll probably cover in part 2. But this is when I was asked my opinion on it, I think we should only remember one lifetime. I've seen and heard too much damage from previous lifetimes. We can't, because of the trauma, we can't, or we've struggled as a collective to deal with trauma, whether it's through insecurities or low self-worth or the victimhood, in this lifetime, never mind previous. Not enough. Yeah. Pretty much. Final say before you depart today. Yes, well, I understand that. Right, we're going to go into a final song, which is a favourite of mine, favourite singer, and a favourite group. Do you want to... I think it kind of explains it, the story to date it in many words. And they say that black is really white, the moon is just the sun at night. And it's all in the words, and it's all about balance as well. 45 heaven or 55 heaven is fine. 45 hell, you know, and it's the balance of the light and the dark. And so this is Ronnie James Dio, who sadly departed about a decade back. I saw him, oh yes. And Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Thanks to Chloe for hosting this show, and we'll be back on either Sunday, Monday, or likely Tuesday with From Russia with Love Part 5. So we'll look forward to that. Thanks for everyone for joining us. This has been An Evening with Thomas. Bye for now.